Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Meditation Mama podcast. We're in series 3, and this is episode 3. And today we're talking about who says so? Who says so? It's like there's so many things we think we should do that we're expected to do, and we just surrender to that and we give in to that and we accept it. And one of the things that can help us to know that we're doing a good job, help us to like ourselves, and in the holidays, to help us be less stressed, is to start asking our minds, who said so? Who says so? So, hi, everyone. I'm Caren Prentice, and I am the founder of Meditation Mama. And over all these years, one of the important things that I have learned and the moms have learned is to really look at those shoulds that come into our head, those expectations that come in and can really kind of stress us out and put a lot of pressure and overwhelm on us. And moms, this series is for moms. You've got a lot going on. You've got a lot going on, and I really encourage you to step back. And when you're starting to feel stressed and overwhelmed and exhausted, is to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Who says I need to do this? And start to question. Don't just blindly go forward, giving in to the pressures, the expectations, and the shoulds, but to question them and to actually ask, whose voice is this in my head telling me that I need to get it all done? That to be a good mom, I need to be able to do it all. Whose voice is that in my head? And it's a really valid question because, on some very realistic level, you all know from experience that you can't do it all. Now, maybe some of you have, really, really good jobs and you can hire a lot of people to help you get it done, but you yourself, no, no. And that's what we want to start to take that pressure and that expectation off and ask ourselves, not just what is that voice in my head, but is what that voice is telling me true or not true? Or maybe once upon a time it was true, but it's not true anymore. And what we begin to do as meditators, moms, what we get to do is we get to stop just, it's just an automatic response. We believe every thought, every impulse, every should, every expectation, but we start to become more conscious, more aware, and choose the thoughts that work for us, question them. And if they're not true for us, to let them go, to let them go. So one of the things that most of you moms bump up against is this idea that somehow you have to do it all. You have to not just have the job, or some of you don't work in jobs outside the home, but if you don't, you probably are volunteering in the schools, volunteering in your churches, you're involved, and there's a lot, especially at this time of year. And so when we start to move into that place where we're saying, I just have to get this done, I just have to get this done, it's really important to stop and ask yourself, whose voice is it? Is it true? And so I've got a couple stories for you I'm going to share in a few minutes that are just really beautiful stories of moms who when they asked that question, they were able to see things in a new way, and they were able to recognize that those expectations and shoulds that were running them were actually not in the best interest of their relationships with their children. And so let's kind of start with one. There's, one of the reasons that we get trapped into the idea that we have to get it all done. We have to do it all is because we're worried about what other people are going to think of us. right? There's a part of us that is really concerned about other people's approval because there's a huge part of our culture where it's really important to be well thought of in our communities, right? In our families. And so I want to start by sharing a story with you of one of the moms who this was years ago, and her son was on a baseball team, and it was causing him a lot of anxiety and stress. He had a talent for it, and the coaches really, really wanted him to play and to play a certain position, and they were really pressuring him to be on the team and pressuring her to get him to show up and try out and do all of the practices and all of the stuff, and he just wasn't into it. It wasn't what he wanted to do. And the mom was torn between the coach is saying, "Your kid has a talent and we really want him on the team. He's an asset. He's an asset. Encourage him to do this. He'll be so glad he did." And then dangling the scholarship to college card in front of her. He's got the talent. He could go to college on a baseball scholarship. And she's over there with a kid who doesn't want to go to practice. He doesn't want to do this, and he's struggling, and it's breeding anxiety. And she's torn between, you made a commitment, you need to show up and do this. You're going to be so glad you did. It's going to get you a scholarship to college. And when she stopped to look at the approval of the coaches was so important to her. And then as she started to recognize where that pressure and stress was coming from her, recognizing that there was a part of her that was really not wanting to disappoint these other people, it helped her get incredible clarity when I asked her the question, well, whose team are you on? Are you on the coach's team or are you on your son's team? And what would happen if you just let your son know you're on his team and you want to show up for him? And that was all she needed to recognize that she had been prioritizing other people's opinions of her and her son and her parenting and all of that. And she was able to sit down, and I have this memory of her sitting with him on the stairs and letting him know that she wanted to be on his team. She was on his team, and what did he want? And they made the hard decision for him to not continue on the team. It was a hard decision, not because it was right for her son, but because of bucking the need for everybody else's approval. But but listen carefully, moms. What she did by demonstrating to her son that she was on his team, she seeded a really important, solid core of connection with her son that said, I'm on your team no matter what. I don't care what anybody else says. I'm on your team. And as he got older and he moved into middle school, high school, that served her incredibly well in her relationship with her son. And it really served her well as he went into his last years of high school during COVID and then into college after that, at a time when so many kids were struggling in so many ways with the isolation and the despair and the hopelessness. And that connection with her son helped carry him through some incredibly challenging times. So just that moment way back when he was younger, to say, I'm on your team. I don't care what anybody else says. I don't care about the shoulds and the expectations and everyone else's approval. I want to be on your team. Seeded a relationship that said to her son, he was more important than anybody else's thoughts or expectations or approval. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? And so this is what, when we start to question that voice in our head, this is what we begin to to develop the skill to recognize where the pressure and the stress is coming from, question it in alignment with our values, and that starts to give us the strength to show up for our lives for what works for us. For what works for us. It doesn't matter who says so. What works for you? And this can be even something as simple as you moms out there right now. Many of you are bumping into traditions that have been in your family or your partner's family for a very long time, and you're the ones bumping into those traditions and saying, "You know what? This isn't working for me," because you've gone there and it's a struggle, it's a challenge, and you've discovered by asking that question, why am I doing this? Who am I trying to please here? You've discovered that you're showing up for traditions that no longer serve you or your children or your family. And it's when we can ask these questions, it gives you the strength to say, you know what? I'm not spending the night at so and so's house on Christmas Eve because I really need to be in my own bed, or I'm going to be crabby and really, really sore the next day. No, I'm not spending Christmas Eve at grandparents' house because I want to have Christmas morning with my family in my home. And if you're not Christian, I don't want to make this sound like only Christians meditate. It's like many of you have other traditions. You're not maybe necessarily focused around Christmas. It may be around Hanukkah. It may be, I know many of you, it's just around that time of year where everything, it's more around the solstice, right? Where everything gets still and quiet. Whatever your tradition might be, when we can start to ask ourselves, who says so? And really start to dive into our minds and question, we begin to be able to have a holiday season that works for you, that brings you joy. It's not based on what other people's expectations are. And so one of the tricks we have to help us do this is when we've got quite a series of questions to do, we're feeling a lot of resistance in our being to maybe doing something different or bumping into those places. But wait a minute, I have to get it all done. I have to get it all done. It's there's just something inside pushing you to do the cookies, the decorations, the gifts, the cards, all of the stuff, the meals, the activities, and you're exhausted and you're worn out, but you can't say no. You can't say no. This is where sometimes it's nice. We have a technique in meditation we call, let's befriend your mind and invite your mind to tea. And so what we do is we say, okay, give your mind a name. Just whatever name comes to you right now. Don't even think about it, right? My mind, the name for my name was Betty. That was the name that came. And you invite your mind to tea and you just say, okay, Betty, what is going on here? Why is it so important that we get it all done? All of this stuff. Trust me, you do this if you just sit quietly, and I actually I recommend doing it in the shower, or if you're just sitting there quietly with a cup of tea, or sometimes even just driving. It's like somehow doing something else frees up some space in your head for this conversation, and so your mind says, "Well, it's important because what will people think of you if you don't get all that done?" And you get to say to your mind, let's say it's Betty, and I say, "Well, Betty, why? Who are these people?" And Betty says, "Oh my gosh, Caren, all those people who give you gifts, if you don't give them gifts back and reciprocate, what are they going to think of you?" And I could say, "Well, oh, Betty, but I don't like getting all those gifts. I don't want all that stuff. And I don't want, it's so exhausting for me. It's so much pressure for me to put all that extra energy into reciprocating these gifts." And Betty goes, "Oh, Caren, don't you see? I'm trying to protect you from people not thinking well of you." And I can go, "Oh, this pressure I'm feeling is my mind trying to protect me from other people not thinking well of me. And at that point, I get to say, okay, Betty, you know what? I appreciate this, but this isn't true any longer. I need to change this paradigm because it's exhausting me and it's burning me out. And I don't have the money for it. I'm tired of being in debt after Christmas, trying to get everybody gifts. So, you know what? This year, we're not going to reciprocate any gifts. We're not going to send cards. We're going to simplify our Christmas because really what's important to me is the connection with my kids, the connection with my family. I want to enjoy my Christmas and I'm not enjoying any of this stuff. And Betty will go, oh, Caren, I don't know. And I say, Betty, it's okay. Let's just try it this year and let's see what happens. We'll just try it, okay? Thank you for looking out for me, but I got this. I can't do it the way I've been doing it all these years. And lo and behold, guess what I learned is I didn't reciprocate all the gifts. I just said, thank you so much. And people stopped giving me gifts and reciprocation was done. I stopped sending cards and a lot of people stopped sending me cards. And that was okay. And a few people will still give me a gift and I can just simply say thank you and accept it. But that part of me that felt a need to reciprocate because I didn't want to hurt someone's feelings or I wanted their approval, that's no longer there. That's no longer there because what I discovered in its place was, oh my gosh, joy, enjoyment, less pressure, less doing, and a lot more being, able to just be and enjoy connection time with my family. And I learned an important thing. Instead of doing, getting all that stuff done, the thing to do was the people things. And so we have a saying in our meditation group here, do the people things first. It was some wisdom passed on to me by my friend who got it from her mother. Do the people things first. And what we realize is that all that stuff out there about doing it all to make it all look so perfect, because we think that's what's going to make us happy, because that's what the culture is telling us, right? Just do all this, make it look so good, and it'll make you happy. And we realize, remember from the last episode, all of that looking perfect didn't make my friend happy. And I learned that all of that doing to make other people happy didn't make me happy. And so I got another story for you because this is a beautiful story of someone who really just said, I'm going to let go of everybody else's expectations of how it should be. And I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up for myself and for my child. And so I actually heard this story secondhand. This isn't a story that this person talked about often, but she was a minister in a church that we attended in the early 90s. And she had moved to Oregon, um, and her husband had gotten very ill with cancer, and he had passed. And her daughter was, probably I think in fifth or sixth grade. And it was very hard. It was very traumatic on her and her daughter. But her daughter was really struggling and was trying to go back to school and was just struggling. And the daughter came to her and said, I don't want to go to school. I just don't want to go to school. And the woman, the minister, was initially horrified. How can you, if you don't go to school, you're going to be behind. You're going to be behind in school. Oh my gosh, it'll be the end of your, right? That catastrophic thinking. It'll be the end of your school career. You're going to be behind. But the other part of her could also look at that thought and say, is that a true thought? My daughter's smart. That may not be a true thought. And then those thoughts that came through, what are all my congregants going to think? What are all those ministers I know throughout the country going to think? What is my family going to think if I, quote unquote, in their minds, indulge my daughter and have her stay home for the year? And she looked at that thought and she said, you know what? I'm here to support my daughter. I want to be on my daughter's team here. And if this is what she feels she needs, I want to support her. I want to put her first, ahead of all my concern about what other people will think. And what ended up happening was the daughter actually needed that year. It had been a complicated life, complicated, and she needed that time to just tend and grieve. And at the end of that year, she went back to school. Everything was fine. She was smart. She was able to catch up. And she went on, and she and her mother had a beautiful relationship, very close relationship. And it was a teaching for me and for many of us that to let go of the shoulds and the expectations, to become consciously aware of what are the forces that are working on me, that are afraid of letting my daughter do this, falling into the what will other people think trap. And what she got was the relationship. She showed up for her child and she preserved a strong connection, a relationship, by seeing her daughter as a unique, precious thing. And what I want to point out from both of these stories I've shared with you is what that also facilitates is you having that same relationship with you being able to be on your team. And when it gets hard at times like this, at these times of year, for you to be able to show up for you and to let go of everybody else's expectations and do what's going to bring you joy, what's going to make you happy. Because maybe one of the things we're learning here in meditation land is it's not about the stuff. It's not about everything out there. It's about connection. It's about questioning and coming home to that place inside you where you can be authentic and show up for you. And what does that do? It helps you recognize, I am doing a good job. I am doing a good job. I am doing a good job. So that's what I hope. I hope you can take away from today's episode is don't just give in to the pressures and the shoulds and the expectations and the traditions of the season. Question, ask, who says so? And create a holiday that works for you and your family and what matters to you. All right, moms. I hope this was helpful, and I do believe that if you would, we've just launched a new page on our website with some resources for you moms. You can go to the website meditationmomma.com and look for the navigation bar where it says for moms, and we have some meditations and teachings and blog posts for you to help you realize and know that you can do this. There's another way to approach being a mom. And so, dear ones, once again, I just love you. I adore you. I so value what you're doing and the path you're walking. And my goal is to support you in any way I can. So thank you so much for spending the time with me here today. I hope to see you on the next episode.
May I be happy, may I be free, joyous, grateful, safe and at ease. May I live wisely, flowing downstream, row my boat gently and sing merrily. May you be happy, may you be free, joyous, grateful, safe and at ease. May you live wisely, flowing downstream, row your boat gently and sing merrily. May all be happy, may they be free, joyous, grateful, safe and at ease. May they live wisely, flowing downstream, row their boats gently and sing merrily.